Welcome. You have made your way to the Rotary eClub of Silicon Valley, and every week we find interesting people to tell us about all kinds of cool things, usually in those interests that we have related to education, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Now, all of this for us as Rotarians fits in that space of humanitarian service. How do we make the world a better place for others? And so when we do this, our goal is to find how we can get people who are doing great things in the community to us via some kind of cool video conference connection and to tell us about the work they do. And this week we have Sharon Winston with us. She is the CEO of Project Hired, and a wonderful lady. She's been with the organization for some time and is going to tell us how they work to make sure people with extra challenges, disabilities, veterans, people who might need a little extra support in finding a job can do so. So I am excited to introduce to you to our speaker this week, Sharon Winston. Sharon, welcome to the eClub of Silicon Valley.
Thank you very much, Rushton. It's a great pleasure to be here. Hello, Rotarians. Kind of you to invest some time today in listening about the work that I do along with a great team at Project Hired and our mission, which is to help individuals with disabilities to find employment. And so it's I think something that fits beautifully with what you're doing as Rotarians, both in the education and advancing individuals in the community. I think we're very much simpatico in that work. What I'd love to do now is bring up a couple of slides that I'm going to share with you. And we'll be going through these. There's just a few of them, but it gives you a framework for my presentation. I'm going to talk to you about why Project Hired, why are we needed in the community, a few items of information around the entire population that has disability within the United States. I'm going to talk to you about an overview of our organization, specifically who do we help, who is eligible for our services, which are all free, by the way, and then what kind of services do we offer. I'll close then with an opportunity to take some questions and interact with Rushton so that we might bring you even a broader idea of what we do. So thank you very much, and away we go. So why Project Hired? And there's two answers to that question. The first would be, why is Sharon at Project Hired? And I will tell you that I have been 30 years a volunteer before joining as a staff member 4 years ago. So I had a whole career in banking. I had another career with Adecco, the world's largest employer, working on career transition work. And during that time, I came across Project Hired, which helps individuals learn how to look for jobs and then acquire those jobs and then thrive while they do that work. The individuals we help just happen to have disabilities, that little extra opportunity they have to go into the workplace, but also educate the community about, it doesn't make a difference if I have a disability, I can do that work. Well, I've been tremendously inspired for those 30 years as I've been with them. I spent 10 years on the board and 6 years as the chair. And then about 4 years and 3 months ago, they asked me if I'd step into a business assessment. As life goes, a business assessment ran all the way through to a third career that I'm on. My fourth career, I think, is with Home Depot, but that's a whole other story I can share with you later. So, why Project Hired? Specifically, it's Project Hired because 1 in every 5 Americans, literally, has a disability. And that may be a great surprise to you at this time, but literally 1 in 5 Americans has a disability. 54 million people are affected by disabilities. And if we were together right now and I was to ask the audience in total, do you know someone with a disability? Almost all of you would have a story to tell about that. So 70% of adults of that 54 million with disabilities are between the ages of 18 and 64, and they are unemployed, which in itself means that there's a huge amount of talented people who are not currently working. 2/3 of those are actively seeking employment.
Sharon, I'm going to leap in real quick. Are we still looking at the same first slide together? Or?
I did it to advance, Rushton.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So if you click on your screen.
Okay.
And again.
There we go.
All right, cool. Keep going.
So ladies and gentlemen, you now see in print the very comments that I just finished making, but this is one of the things that surprises people the most. The last thing that I'll add that's not on the slide 83% of us who do not currently have a disability will age into a disability. And so considering most of us will have to work longer or want to work longer, we're actually going to end up in the very population that we serve. So Project Hired, very straightforward, 40 years, this is our anniversary year, by the way, 40 years of assisting individuals with disabilities to gain and to sustain employment. So one of the things I'll share with you a little bit later in my comments would be we have a free 12-month program that takes someone through the idea of how to find a job, how to keep a job, how to flourish in that job. So keep in mind, what does Project Hire do? We teach people how to fish. We don't do the fishing for them. So a life skill is what is transferred to the individuals that we work with. A quick overview of Project Hired. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Our programs are funded through grants, donations, and an Ability One program, which are contracts that we have with the government. We're also a Department of Rehabilitation certified provider. We support job seekers through all stages of their job search. And again, the critical piece is for free. We don't charge for our services at all. I'm very proud to tell you that VA call centers in Palo Alto, San Francisco, and Fresno, we have, through under Ability One, through federal government contracts, we have the call centers, and they are staffed by my employees. And in those employees, by the way, are all severely disabled. So when I talk with people about helping individuals with disabilities, I'm not talking also about helping, I'm talking about the fact every day my employees fit into that category. One of the great things about that is that when I talk to an employer, they have an opportunity to talk with me holistically about employing someone who has a disability. We answer, by the way, 1 million calls from veterans every single year. We answer the calls for 3 hospitals and 15 clinics, as it turns out. So who do we help? Well, this is Denise, by the way, the lovely lady that you see pictured right there. We help anyone with a disability, just needs to be certified by a doctor. It includes people with emotional trauma or PTSD. So again, I would mention to you that we specifically help veterans. Anywhere from 15 to 30% of our client base, those who are coming in for free services at any time, are veterans, wounded warriors from any and all services and any and all wars or service. And we're very proud of that. I would also mention to you that in my call centers, 65% of the people that I employ are either veterans or family members of currently serving veterans. So again, who do we help? We help someone like Denise. I'll take just a moment to tell you a little bit about Denise. When she came in, one of the critical things that she represents is someone who's been sort of beaten up by life and beaten up by circumstances. And one of the things I'll share with you is you'll see, you do not see her disability. 75% of the individuals who have a disability, you cannot see the disability. Because oftentimes when people talk about helping the disabled, they're thinking, someone in a wheelchair or on crutches or something along those lines. Keep in mind, 75% of the individuals with a disability, it doesn't show. Mine doesn't show, for instance. And yet, it is there and it needs to be accommodated. Denise specifically came in, and she won't mind. I'm going to share sort of a short testimonial with you about Denise. When she came in, she was very tentative. You could almost see her shoulders bent down, her head down. And she said, well, I thought I'd just come in and get information. My staff, my team at the front desk engaged her in conversation, encouraged her to come in for services. She finally signed up. She went through orientation and then started the workshops. And slowly but surely, she started to come out of her, I think we all could call it the valley. There's a valley we all sometimes enter. Makes it really difficult to engage with others, but when you have a disability, it also makes it particularly difficult. She had recently lost her husband, and so here she is, a widow with a disability, all on her own for the first time. So she's in the workshops and she's starting to flourish, and then we have her join a program that we have inside the organization called CWIP, and that's specifically, it's not about whips, by the way, it's CWIP, it's called Client Work Experience Program. And we had her come up to the front desk of Project Hired, and we had her with a buddy, and we got her started on greeting customers using the phone and the computer, and she started to really thrive. To the day that you see her now, as she is pictured, a vibrant, wonderful individual who I hired up at the call center in Palo Alto because she's absolutely awesome on the phones and with helping people solve problems. And so the other day I was in Palo Alto, and I'll tell you, I walked into the call center and she said, "Sharon, hi," throws down her headset, gives her the biggest hug and says, "Oh my God, you wouldn't believe how terrific things are." That is the story of the transformation that most often we get to see at Project Hired. Someone who comes into us beaten up, beaten down, trying to overcome some great difficulties, and we work with them in a variety of ways to make sure that they really start to flourish again, or able to get a job again. I hope sometime you'll actually have a chance to meet Denise. She comes to all of our events and very often is a testimonial for us. So moving on, I'm going to talk to you about who's eligible. They have to have a permanent disability, over 18 years of age, though we are starting currently to work with the Santa Clara Unified School District with some of their classes, be able to conduct an independent job search for competitive employment. So what I'll mention to you now is there are some fabulous services within our community, like Pride Industries or Hope Services. And that is what they call developmentally disabled group work that they do. They assemble work teams and do work together, and they have coaches that are with the individuals at all times. We fill that niche where someone comes to us with a disability, but they're all ready to go back to work independently on their own. They just need to learn how to look for that job and then how to retain that job. The individual who comes to us has to be willing and able to attend workshops and regular meetings with their career coach. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to take a moment to explain the actual program that we offer, which again is free. And we do offer these services because I'm able to take a small profit off of the call center contracts that we have. We have donations that come in. We have grants that come in. And we also have volunteers. And keep that in mind, if any of you are looking for a volunteer opportunity in San Jose, we are an awesome place to do it. But what services do we offer? We have an all-inclusive employment service, and it's focused on helping them begin to advocate for themselves, empowering the individual who's come to us, and encouraging self-sufficiency. We have personalized one-on-one coaching. They get a personal coach. They meet alone with that coach. Plus, we then have group events all the time, but in particular, core skills training, 9 workshops that they take throughout the couple of months that they begin their program with us. We have personalized job matching. So I have a job developer who goes out and taking the resume of the individual who's working with us, goes out and pulls jobs so that they can apply for them. So again, we're giving that kind of support. We also have guest speakers and networking events, which are really terrific, that allow us to have them practice their networking, have them get out in the community, and also brings the community in to us. So I believe in efficiency, and I believe in short and hopefully powerful presentations. So with that in mind, I'm going to be ending a couple of minutes early, but I'll end with a couple of comments. First, the work that we do is critical to advancing the community, let alone the individual. Every time someone goes back to work and has that feeling of contributing, it is fantastic for everybody. When you keep in mind that these individuals are overcoming thresholds that we don't necessarily have in our way, keep in mind that their victories are greater. Very often individuals come to us, you might say Denise was feeling a bit like a victim. We turn people into victors. The victory is getting the job, the victory is taking care of themselves. And keep in mind, every time we help an individual, there are at least 50 people standing behind them. And you have every right to ask, who are those 50 standing behind them? Their immediate family, the extended family, the community that they are now out and able to go out and interact with. The way they're able to take that paycheck and purchase items so that retailers benefit. They're paying taxes, and believe it or not, individuals who've never paid taxes are delighted to pay taxes. I could tell you the story of Phoenix if we had time, but we don't. So I'll save that for another time. But this is what we're trying to do. Support individuals who want nothing more than to be vibrant members of our community, and all of us benefit when that happens. So thank you for giving me these few moments to share Project Hired with you, my enthusiasm and passion for it. It's been a long time nurtured, these 30 years that I have been part of it, and I hope all of you will find a way to be part of it also. I'm going to throw it back to Rushton now. And Rushton?
Perfect. What a wonderful story. And go ahead and stop sharing your screen there, and let's get into some questions. I wrote down a number of things along the way. I think it's wonderful that you are giving people the opportunity to experience the dignity of work, really.
Yes.
And so when we talk about the events you do, all right, so I'm imagining training activities. That was one of the items on one of your slides. Are there other kind of activities, events that are part of what the people who are working with you get a chance to experience as a part of getting them and keeping jobs?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you. So we do a wide variety of things. You can do job fairs. We make sure they know everything that's going on in the community, both those which we hold on site and those which are being held in other places or at employers. We hold networking events around the holidays, nothing better than a party on St. Patrick's Day or Valentine's Day. We hold open houses and we encourage everyone to come who's taking our services, but also we then bring in the community. So we would bring in other service providers because it does take a community to help an individual get back on their feet or into a job. We also bring in donors and grantors so they can meet the success stories or the people who are in process. The other kinds of events we have is a couple times a year, corporations feature us with an event on their campuses. So for instance, ServiceNow, Amazon, very soon, a couple others are going to be featuring us on their campuses. We open the event to everyone, including their employees and our clients, and then we bring in everybody to experience an on-campus event. Usually includes testimonials, that type of thing. Is that helpful?
Totally is. Yeah. And so when we think about what activities volunteers might take part in, you mentioned that you have a lot of volunteers working with you. What do the volunteers do when they're coming in and taking part in your activities?
So we have a couple ways that we manage this because we also want to have a volunteer have a great experience. So we talk with them first and we ask them, what would you like to do? Now, what we're doing is helping people find jobs. So there's lots of interesting parts to this. One is mentoring just generally, or do you know employers looking and you can introduce our clients. Mock interviewing is an awesome piece that can be done. So you come in, you give an hour of time, you sit down with one of our clients and you literally have them go through an interview with you and then you debrief them, giving them some coaching. So those would be a couple of things right off the bat. We can use volunteers to help us with our events, and we can use volunteers to help us with our marketing and like that. But primarily I say if you wanted to come to the organization, those are the kinds of things that you could look to. But first we ask, what would you like to do? What are you good at? What would you feel comfortable as a volunteer doing? Someone shows up and says, I love to paint walls. I'll get them a bucket of paint. If they say, I love nothing more than to help someone by being a mentor, then we're going to hook them up with a client.
Very nice. Another point along the way, you mentioned that 83% of people will age into a disability. So what are the most common disabilities that are a result of aging?
Very honestly, I don't know if there's common, but I can list, say, 3 or 4 for you.
Yeah.
The loss of hearing. If you think of Huey Lewis recently, you would have seen in the paper he's starting to significantly lose his hearing after rocking out for all those years. Well, there are a lot of us who've rocked out over all the years losing some hearing. Naturally, there's the loss of sight or some capacity for being able to see well. Sciatica is something that shows up a lot, diabetes. Someone can have a heart attack and lose perhaps a bit of function, and then that would also be a disability. So literally that's what starts to happen. Sadly, of course, there's Alzheimer's in the early stages. We're able to help in some areas. But again, those are the kinds of things when I say of aging into a disability, those are the kind of things we're starting to look at.
All right. So you mentioned you mentioned an interest in Home Depot at one point that kind of like that may be your fourth career or something. Okay. How does your work now kind of connect to that sense of Home Depot's a cool place? What you got?
In my 90s, you'll find me in the tile aisle of Home Depot. I'll be selling tile. I figure I'll be in good shape to do that. So this is what I call third major career. I probably have a fourth one maybe after this. And then in my 90s, that's what I kind of always tell everybody. I'll find me at Home Depot, I'll be in the tile aisle. I actually love working. I actually tried retirement for a year, and good or bad, what I found is everything I could do in retirement, I could still do on weekends. And I love being out with people, making things happen, being part of things getting better. And quite frankly, I feel more needed than ever before, and that's a great thing.
I love in how you describe that, a feeling that I share with you about work. I
Yep.
love the work I do. I love being someone who trains teachers to see new possibilities in their
Mhm.
work, things like this. I mean, just I love that work. And so often in the popular media, you know, work is treated as this, you know, kind of necessary evil that people have to deal with. Oh, work, you know, and it's like, you know, I mean, if you like what you do, you know, that's a good way to get to happiness, I figure.
More ways than one, and if you can do it while you're helping others, believe me, it's a high unparalleled by anything you can take.
You know, Rotarians are going to understand that perspective perfectly, without a doubt.
That's why I thought we were in simpatico after your introduction when we
Exactly.
first talked about it, because absolutely, I think we are in cahoots, and it's a happy situation.
Awesome. Now, you also mentioned some work with Santa Clara Unified School District,
Yeah.
and so let's imagine, like, let's paint a picture. Let's say that a graduate of a few years ago, someone who had a special education identification of some kind,
Mhm.
is now out and having trouble getting a job for one reason or another, or maybe even homeless or something.
Yes.
How does that person fit into your process? I mean, is the ability to point to something like a special education identification at some point in the past enough to qualify for the doctor's piece that you mentioned?
So if indeed they were diagnosed and put into a special needs organization, class, or public school,
Accommodations of some kind.
the probability is that that is still in place and they're still working with their doctor on it. They would
Mm,
just get a current note from the doctor. My threshold for coming into the free services is so low because mine is not a government program.
mm.
This is really a community effort. And so if a psychologist or a doctor can just send us a note that says this individual is permanently disabled, we are very happy to welcome them to services. If I might also take up on something you mentioned, one of the critical things we do is to help the homeless and to get people out of poverty, which
Mm.
is one of the critical things to be doing. We have also got a huge portfolio of additional community services we refer people to. So if someone comes to us and they're homeless and they're desperate to get a job, one of the first things we do is hook them up with a group that will get them housing. Housing is critical to be able to get some sleep, be able to pull yourself together enough to be able to look for a job. And then when you go on the interview, look as though you're prepared to go to work. So it's some very interesting pieces that we put together very quickly to make all of that happen.
Very cool. Well, I think we're kind of running towards the end of our time. So what I'm going to do is wind things down and then pass it back to you for the final thought. But thank you very much for all of the wonderful ideas that you're sharing. It sounds like you guys are doing exactly the kind of work that makes us all happy about being in a society where we go to some trouble to try to help those who are most challenged, right? And so all of you who have joined us today and who have watched this, our members, our guests, we ask you to do two things. First, let us know you were here. There is an attendance form just a little bit farther down this page. You'll see that. Click on that and let us know, because you know we want to be able to just thank you for that. And if you put your email in properly and you're a Rotarian guest, then you will get an email that you can pass along to your club secretary as a makeup for a missed meeting. If you are someone who cares about getting 100% attendance, and I hope you are, because it's that easy doing it with us. And then a little farther down the page, there is the discuss section, DISQUS. And we hope you'll leave some comments about the meeting as a whole, the program specifically, and perhaps even reply to what others have put there. We love to engage in conversations and to share with each other ideas about how to make our communities better. So with that, I will pass it back to Sharon to give us a final word as we finish up.
Terrific. Thank you, Rushton. And thank you, Rotarians, for listening today and being willing to understand and appreciate the work we do, which is very complementary to your own work. Rushton suggested perhaps I could leave you with words of wisdom. I always quote someone in that case. In this case, it's Mahatma Gandhi. Become the change you seek. If we want more peace in the world, more camaraderie, if we want everything just to plain old fashioned work better, what we can do is help put a lot of people back to work. And this is a population, the individuals with disabilities, that with the smallest amounts of help and support are extraordinarily able to do the work and wanting to do the work. They make fabulous employees. I can attest to that. So whatever you can do, whether it's good thoughts out into the universe or connecting us with someone, whatever you can do to help us, we're going to be eternally grateful. And so I'll just close by saying thank you for investing your time with us today. It's been an honor and a privilege. And continue your great work as we will continue ours.
Thank you, Sharon. And everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.